So good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, beta. Please.
Yeah. Good evening, participant. Today we are having amazing person with us, Dr. Professor Shanmukh Kamble, sir. I would like to add 2 points about him. I think for his presentation, I have received more application for the session.
Okay.
So with that compliment, I would like to start here. And
Yes.
I would like to record one of the important things. This is an initiative of the Department of Psychology in the American College of Madurai. I'm working as a assistant professor in the Department of Psychology. Today is one of the unique topic because there are many experts are there to discuss about psychological well-being and mental health of women. But when I was looking for a psychological and mental health of well-being and mental health of men, so sir, I asked him. He said that he consented. Thank you, sir, for accepting my invitation and going to share your experience. Dear all, we are going to start with a small video. Then the professor will join the presentation.
Yes.
Yes. The full screen. Yes. There many of them are on the way.
Okay.
Yes. So,
Yes, I'm here.
sir, I would like to add few more information about you. Dear participant, our resource person is an professor of Karnataka University, and I had a chance to listen his presentation in Annam University. It was fantastic. I think you are going to enjoy this remaining session. We are going to have a presentation for another 20 minutes. Last 20 minutes, we are going to have a question and answer session. Please keep your questions. Suppose if you are not able to ask a question to the resource person, there is a chat box will be there. You can write your comments over there. It will be passed on to the resource person. Thank you all. Thank you. Sir, you can take on the session, sir.
Yeah. Can we start with the PPTs?
Yes, 1 minute.
Okay.
Sir, yes.
Yes. I can. Okay, fine. Okay. Good evening, dear participant. And today I'll be speaking about psychological well-being in men. Okay. The first diagram, it shows about how a man is, right? This is how most of the time when we say a man, this is how the flashy photograph starts around with. Yes. Can you go to the next?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
Yes. Now, the whole question arises in front of us. What is this masculine qualities? And the interesting part nowadays is when we want to check what is masculinity, we find a very less amount of resources. And interestingly, in our field of psychology also, we have just one particular journal which is called as the Psychology of Masculinity, that is also published by this American Psychological Association. Now, the best part was in the 50s and 60s and the 70s, the women were being projected by most of these men how an ideal girl or a woman should be. But in the late 70s and the early 80s and the 90s, the women started hitting back at the men. And that's the reason it started with the 6-pack and 8-pack phenomena. Now, before I try to answer or before we go into the little more details about this, what is this man all about? I can show you the next, what do you call it as the slide, which will try to speak about the qualities that we try to see in a man. So this is the social construction of man. When I say social construction, that means that the society expects this quality to be seen in a man. That is, he should be self-reliant, defends his own beliefs, he should be independent, athletic, assertive, strong personality, forceful, analytical, leadership. And these are some of the qualities which was very popularized by this Sandra Bem and Bem, in fact. If you go to the next slide, you can see that we are trying to talk about the biological construct, but I would call it as the chemical construction of man. Now, you all must be wondering, why am I trying to talk about the chemical? Because the chemical plays a very important role. And we have this, the girl always complains about the boy. My boyfriend is not understanding me. Or the wife is trying to complain and say, my husband doesn't understand what I'm feeling. So here is the main contention or the difference that you can notice. The main predominant hormone in a man is called as the testosterone. And it has a specific qualities that it imbibes in a man. That is, it makes a man dominant, aggressive, and all powerful. And more than that, it makes him to focus on one given work at a time. See, basically women are all multi-skilled. They can do two to three things at a time. They can watch a serial, they can be doing some knitting work, and simultaneously they can be talking on the phone. But for a man, it has to be only one work at a time that he would like to do with efficiency as such. Another important point, if you have noticed, a man's body smells a lot, and we call it as the smell of the manhood. It's the androstenedione, which is very, very important, and it plays a very important role. Even when we were trying to do some researches, we found that that smell actually makes a girl or a woman to reduce the stress level. It is a very interesting study that we had conducted, and was even conducted by Sheldon also. The next we have is vasopressin. What it does, this is that particular chemical or a hormone in a person that makes a person to be a monogamy, or would like to protect his wife, his children, and would like to protect his house of the area, like trying to say it's mine. Okay, next slide, when we go there, we can notice that there's this particular quality which we call it as the Mullerian inhibiting substances. Okay, what does it do? It is trying to suppress that particular behavior which is typically feminine. And this becomes a little controversial for most of the time when we try to talk about it, because see, man is not only having the masculine hormones as well as the chemicals, he has feminine qualities also. But the suppression is done by this Muller inhibiting substance. The next very important chemical is called as oxytocin, and it builds up, you can call it as, it tries to make a person to feel relaxed and comfortable, especially when these men or the boys, after having a good time with a girl, they usually end up going back to sleep as such, because it is this influence of the oxytocin which makes a person to control himself or to feel relaxed as such. The next. Then we have this prolactin, which stimulates the connections in the male brain for paternal behavior. And during this particular period of time, that could be like when the woman has given birth to a child or a baby, the man's decreased sex drive will be there. And it is the role of the prolactin which plays an important role. And as I told you earlier, it is the androstenedione, which plays a very important role as far, we call it as pheromones, which will be like, you know, trying to attract the person of the opposite sex, or maybe a girl or a woman as such, you can call it as. Next slide, please. Then we have a very important one, which is called as the dopamine. And I tell you, this is the one which makes a man to be more dependent on, especially when you speak about smoking as an addiction, drinking as an addiction, and gambling as an addiction. And nowadays we have the cell phone addictions also, which is actually a role played by this dopamine as such. Go to the next one. Yes. Next slide, please. Okay, now we come to a very contention or a very debated topic, what we call it as the emotional function. A girl or a wife or a mother or a lady as such, she always has a complaint about a man. They'll start telling, hey, I don't understand what he's trying to express on his face, or why he's looking in this particular manner. See, in fact, in this emotional system, what we call it as, there are two major parts here. One is called PJ, which is temporal parietal junction system, which is most often used by people comes and tells them, see, that person at my workplace is harassing me, or I find this very confusing, what should I do? See, when a woman will come and tell, or a girl will come and tell a boy about her problems, she doesn't want him to fix the problem. In fact, that's where the man goes wrong. She wants to tell that I have a problem and let us somebody to listen to her talks. That's the most important one. And here coming to this mirror neuron systems, this is the one which is very important, which plays a very important role, because when you look at a person expressing smile, you also will start smiling, isn't it? If a person makes a frowning face, you also start frowning. But will a man be able to do this or not? That's another question for us. If we go to the next slides. Yes, yeah. Here, there was a very important experiment which was carried out. They just wanted to find out whether a man can able to recognize the smiling face of another individual. So for this, they conducted a what you call a practical experiment in the laboratory. What they did was, there are these two muscles over the face. One is called as zygomaticus, which speaks about when you smile, that particular part of the muscle smiles. And when you show anger or you show displeasure or disgust or scowling, that is called as a corrugator. So when they tried to check it out, they had put the electrodes. So electrodes are trying to check out whether there's going to be an electric impulses in this particular areas. And interestingly, what they found was the man takes longer time to understand the emotions being expressed. Or in other words, what I tried to express it as, the man's face looked shocked, in the sense he was not able to give any immediate response to it. Can we go to the next slide, please? He was not able to give the immediate response as such. Then he tried to extend the time. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Because I got some message saying that your speaker is not working as such.
Okay, no problem, sir.
Yeah. Then, can we go to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
So this itself tells us that the emotional responses of a man takes a little longer time. Suppose if you go and tell a man that, oh, today I won a lottery. If a girl says that, she expects immediate smile on the face. But the smile might take some time to come, because this is what is happening in the brain's mind as such when it's trying to react as such. And the interesting point what I would like to show you over here is, see the difference between the male and the female. For a female, a red color could be having a different sort of composition, or you can call it as the hue and the color changes for a girl or for a woman. But for a man, it is going to be plain. The two compromising things about the red colors is red color for man, but for woman, that may not happen as such. See, for example, the red color, you have so much of variance in the girl, the variance of purple color or a pink color for that matter. So these are trying to speak about why a man, when a woman will come and try to speak to them, or when they try to express the emotions, this men find it little hard to understand it. Next slide. Okay. So now when a man has this particular problem, so now you would be wondering like, what is the psychological well-being exercise that we might try to recommend here? That is, there's a lot of information which is available for us to understand emotions, that we call it as emotional intelligence as such, where we try to understand our emotions, understand others' emotions, understand your own emotion, manage your own emotions, and manage others' emotions, and use emotions effectively in order to solve the problem as such. So especially when I try to speak about how a man is, and you want to bring in some sort of exercises by which an psychological well-being can be expressed, I think emotional intelligence learning or learning about emotions plays a very important role. But here it is not a hard and fast rule, but to at some level, I think men need to make an effort to understand the emotions of a human being as such. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yes, I think this locked.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, the next slide, please.
I think somebody locked the slides, I think, in the session. Dear participant, please, I think somebody has blocked the session to present. Please check your side. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the slides.
Sir, I will make you as a host.
Yes, yes.
And you have a people with your system, sir. Can you proceed from there?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not able to move the next slide, right?
Yeah, I think somebody has done it.
Yes.
I was grenade in the earlier, I think 1 minute.
Yes, yes.
Sir, can you able to present it from your system, sir? Can you able to continue the session?
I can start this one.
Yes, yes, you can start. I can take.
I'm saying you cannot start your screen share while the other person is sharing.
Now, one more person is confirmed. There are few of them are doing it.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Now we can.
I can share my PPT.
One
Okay.
minute. I will do it.
Yes, yes. I think I can share it now.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
I think some techie is here.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'll start using my
Yes, we'll
slides.
make you as a host.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Suresh. I'm
Yes.
sorry about the delay.
It's okay.
So I was trying to bring to you all the point that the man is not able to understand another person's, I mean, especially the woman or the opposite sex has a lot of problem as far as the emotional expression is concerned. So I think for this particular form, I would be recommending a psychological well-being for that emotional intelligence as such. Okay, there are some of those. Okay, now next we come to this particular Uh, these are some of the papers that we have published, and we were trying to talk about how these emotions can really influence an husband and wife as far as the relationships are concerned. So these are some of the papers just for your glance. I would like to talk to you all about the next one. The next very important aspect I would like to speak to you all is about the marshmallow test conducted by this Walter Mischel. So when he was trying to conduct this particular test, he did it on small children who were of 5 to 6 years old. And he told them, if you can wait for 2 minutes, by the time I return, I'll give you 2 marshmallow. But if you're not able to wait for me, you please ring the bell and I'll come and give you one of the marshmallow. The interesting part of this particular experiment was there were some of the children who were quite impatient. They rang the bell and Walter came and started giving them that marshmallow to eat. But there were some of them who were able to wait for 5 to 10 minutes as such. What is so interesting about this particular test? This was the first ever test which was conducted, which had a longitudinal, what do you call it, as follow-up as such. When they went and tried to find those children, what they had become after 40 years, they had well documented all the information. What they found was that children who were little impatient turned out to be an addicts, or they turned out to be a person who didn't have self-control. So here I'm trying to talk to you all about willpower. What is willpower? Willpower is the ability to resist short-term temptations in order to meet long-term goals. See, most of the time what happens is when our friends will call us for a movie show and we have an examination, we just fall for the trap of going for the examination. Instead of going for the examination, we end up going for something which is more pleasurable. Maybe going for the movie or trying to go for some of those activity which is not really trying to do any good for us as such. And interestingly, most of the persons, they get tempted by these drugs, alcohol, or even what you call the risky sex behaviors, and they might try to avoid all the noble goals that is there in their life as such. And you must have seen the sense of trying to go into an risky behavior or not having a self-control is very high in men in particular. And here, when we're trying to talk about this particular, what is this willpower is all about? It is trying to establish the motivation for a change and setting a clear goal in our life as such. It's trying to monitor the behavior towards that particular goal. And exercising willpower is almost like you want to lose your weight, it could be, or you want to leave your smoking habit or drinking habit, or even for that matter, you don't want to use the Facebook as such, or maybe you don't want to use the cell phone as such. But what happens? The willpower is the mental power. It speaks about how we are able to control ourselves. But unfortunately, we human beings, we fall prey to this hot system. What is this hot system within us? We all act very impulsively and very emotionally. At this particular point of the duration of this instance, what do I want? What would I like to enjoy? We are more concerned or consumed by it. But the cool system is another part of the cognitive in nature that helps us to think and starts telling us, no, you should not do this particular activity. This is all sensation seeking. Let us try to do something which is going to help us in the long run as such. So the next question comes is like, how can we enhance the psychological well-being? See, we can enhance this by increasing your capacity for pressure. That is, we have to learn a better way of learning to cope up with stress. For example, you must be wondering, why am I trying to speak about stress? Especially when you're stressed out, it generally happens you go for a cigarette, or you might end up doing that particular pleasurable activity which could really cause some sort of harm or damage to us. Second major point is you can stick to your plan. Suppose in case you have a particular plan, maybe you would like to study, or maybe you wanted to go to do some exercises, or maybe you had plans of doing your work. Let us try to stick to it as such. The most important is sleep. We always say we have to sleep for 8 hours or 6 hours. But it all depends. The moment you wake up, you should feel freshened up, or you should feel that there's a lot of energy in me. The fourth important point, what we have found in order to enhance the psychological well-being or increasing your self-control is meditate or meditation as such. The fifth one is Suppose in case you have an aversion or maybe you don't want to do exercise, meditation, you can do any sort of exercises for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And this is very important. Try to have a very good nutrition. Don't try to go for those type of food could really make you to develop some sort of anxiety or maybe even make you to feel a little stressed out. And another important point is we should not try to postpone things, or there are sometimes when you can postpone things in order to get a very good results as such. So for you all, there are some articles that we can try to read it and try to know more about willpower. We can try to have this willpower within our systems in order to there could be something like you wanted to do some exercises and you could not live up to that. Maybe the willpower of trying to make it to wake up at 5 o'clock and try to do this particular exercise could be helping us, could be very far from us. Here, when I was trying to take a particular course on science of well-being, I called as Gabrielle Pottington, and she speaks about rethinking positive thinking. We have positive thinking. What is rethinking positive thinking? It's a very interesting book. In case any of you would like to have this book, I have an e-copy to be able to share with you. Here, she speaks about a term called as WOOP, W-O-O-P, that is wish, outcome, obstacles, plan. Generally, when we set the goals, how we should try to set the goal. We have to be very specific about our goals. That is the degree of quality. That is qualitative precision with which a goal is specified. For example, you are planning to do this particular goal setting of meditating. We should be very clear where are you going to meditate, how we are going to do it, and when you would like to do it. Only when after you answer, you can go to the next particular part of this as such, that you have to have a goal visualization, that is mental contrasting, that is a visual. What is this? Is it a new technique? No, it's a almost like a done technique, but she speaks about a visualization technique involving us thinking of a positive future. Then after of the obstacles, when we try to teach all about how to do this goal visualization, we generally speak about going to think of the obstacles, remove the obstacles. But she says that think something very positive and then try to go about removing those obstacles which could be blocking us. Another important point she speaks is about the good planning. That is, when you say good planning, it speaks about how we are going to implement this. That is implementation intention, calls it as. It is a self-regulatory strategy in the form of an if-then plan can lead to a better goal attainment. It is a very interesting point where she starts to speak up for it. So why did I speak about this particular lady's book on rethinking about positive thinking? Because in this particular book, she speaks about the self-control, so how we are supposed to control ourselves and try to fix the goal and to go ahead with ourselves as such. Next important point which comes for a man in particular is about the relationships, which is sharing. And I'll tell you, this is the most important aspect of a man's life as such, or for a woman also. The most of the time, the path is driven with disappointment and heartbreaks. We have to heal and we have to move on.
Sir,
Sometimes the
sir, can
hello,
you hear me? Yeah, we're
hello.
breaking, sir. Last 2 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I
now
think
it's okay.
it has to. Yeah, okay. I think I had a loose there was
Yes.
some connection problem, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. When people have this fixed mindsets, that is, our mindset should not be that fixed as such. So it's for even for this presentation, where she speaks about most of the time the relationships which a person shares. It could be as a boyfriend, as a girlfriend, or a husband and a wife as well. But there's a lot of problem that does occur over here. That is, if there is something, they always try to judge and they would like to reject each other and they feel they have not loved as such. And in some extreme cases, it is almost like a revenge that will be always prevailing the husband wife.
Sir, I think and
Sir,
yes.
sir, your voice is breaking for I think the past 10 minutes.
More ahead as such. And when you're trying to talk about this relationship, the husband-wife relationship, we can call it as, or a relationship in a boy and girl, if there is no proper communication between them, if the communication is not very much open to each other, maybe it leads to a lot of misunderstanding. And out of 100%, 95% of the problems do happen because of not having a proper communication as such. Another important thing here we find is like, I'm trying to rely more on this evolutionary psychology here. Mm, the character flaws in a relationship, maybe if a husband and wife are married for quite long time, they generally what happens is one of the person, especially they cheat. When I say cheat, it could be like, seeing another girl or seeing another woman, or maybe sleeping out, or maybe sending some messages or love letters, and all these things does happen. And here I would like to speak about this particular Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton's what do you call the marriage breakup. It was almost on the verge of breakup as such because of Monica Lewinsky. And that time Stevie Wonder, one of those pop stars, he wrote a song on forgiveness, and he was trying to tell forgiveness is actually you are trying to build up a relationship which is almost like on the verge of breaking as such. You have so much of revenge attitude, but you are trying to replace it with benevolence. You have hatred, but you would like to replace with love. Why do you do it? Because by having this revenge, you are only burning up. The other person doesn't burn up at all. That doesn't mean that the other person should not be conveyed of the forgiveness. We have to convey the message to them. And sometimes there's a competition between the spouses or self, maybe the husband or the wife. It could be an economical competition, it could be an artistic competition, or it could be social competition which takes place. And another major relationship breakup we have found is because of the cell phones. Because the husband doesn't want to show the cell phone and the messages, and the wife also the same thing, or maybe the girlfriend, the boyfriend, they have their own space. They say, this is my space and I don't want you to see my phone and all that. So to build up this psychological well-being in the man or in this relationship which a person is sharing, these are the 4 important or 5 important elements I would like to speak to you about. That is, forgiveness should be there in a relationship, or this is a weapon by which you can enhance the psychological being. There should be gratitude, trying to be thankful to each other. Savoring means you're trying to spend the time and try to linger that particular moments, lingering the moments of togetherness, you can say. Or you can not like spending time with the family members and all that. It should be trying to spend more time with you to and some of those articles that we did work on, so that we could find whether does forgiveness really work in these Indian marriages as well as in Indian families and the Western families. And there's a very important book that I would like to recommend. If you would like to have that copy, I have a soft copy also, I can share it. That is How to Break Up with Your Phone as such. Because nowadays the boy and a girl, or a husband and a wife, they always have a lot of problem as far as the cell phone is concerned. And it has come there to, in order to glue, it has come there to default a relationship or trying to break the relationship as such. The next important point I would like to talk to you all is about the men engaging in with the healthcare.
Sir,
So here I would like to tell you all, yes.
Sir, we are having less than a minute. I request all the participants, you can, the session will end in less than a minute. You have to come back in the same link. We will continue
Okay.
the remaining presentation and question and answer session.
Okay. There's just 1 minute going on, right?
Automatically disconnect. We will come back to the same link. Dear participants, please come back to the same link. We will continue the session.
Okay. You're going to log me in again, right?
Yes, I will. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.